From ancient times to the modern world, we follow the city's exciting growth through time and history. Welcome to episode 2, where we continue this urban journey. Ahead of us are great constructions, wonders, and engineering innovations. But for now, after the first episode, the city clearly needed to strengthen its defenses. Building full city walls was still too expensive. As we can see, the island where the city stands is quite large, and surrounding it with walls is not easy. Sure, this will happen in the future, but for now, the decision was made to build guard towers around the island to control all approaches. Was this the right decision or not? We can only guess. No one knows when and where an attack may come. Still, the island is separated from the mainland, and this gives it an advantage and natural barrier. Another major problem that prevents such a grand stone project is the lack of a permanent stone quarry. This is what the city must solve in order to truly change its appearance. The quarry site was found very close to the city. Across the Styx river lies the hill of the Hesperides, rising above the city skyline. Here, high-quality sandstone can be extracted. In fact, this is the city's first large-scale production of this kind. Oh, here we have a small fire, so let's see how fast the firefighters can reach this place from the island. This is actually a very good sign that we should place a fire station on this side as well, not only on Acre Island. By the way, this is the name of the island where the city center is located. At the same time, the city decided to improve transport access, so it began to organize its first carriage routes. Remember, this city follows an alternative history, so we can introduce early carriage transport without any problems. It will be even more interesting to watch how transport and its route evolve through the city's history. Oh yes, for now the routes will only use shades of grey, because otherwise the horses get colored in a strange and unnatural way. Like any ancient city, horse traffic is such a mess, so everything is fine here. For realism, I decided to reduce the size of the quarry at the beginning. It will grow over time. Now that stone production is organized, this material has become much more available and, of course, preferred for construction. The first rebuilding of the city center has begun. Now that people can afford more comfortable homes, and as the demand for housing grows, there is no longer space in the center for wooden shacks. They are being replaced by more densely populated buildings. And finally, this period also was marked by the start of an important project the city truly needed: an amphitheater. The ruler of that time loved and supported the arts, and it was important to him that the city gained a grand cultural building known for beyond its borders. This is truly the first major construction project, one that will involve the entire city and require many resources. The city keeps growing, and it's clear that we need to expand into the farmland. There is still plenty of space on Acre Island, and the Cardo Street continues deeper into the island. Usually the first I place a medical building, and then I add something like a school, a few supporting buildings, and of course the barracks, which also work as a police station. People build up the new land very quickly. The flow of the new migrants from all corners of the ancient world never stops. And this is very important for a growing settlement, because to build something truly great, you need people. The Oracle Temple has also appeared here, and this neighborhood is now called the Oracle. At the very beginning, land didn't belong to individuals. It belonged to the community. Families used small areas, but borders were not fixed. Newcomers came to find work, trade goods, or escape danger in the countryside. Some people stayed for life, others stayed only for a short time, but land quickly became valuable. Over time, the city had to create clear rules. Some residents received full rights, others did not. Only certain people could own land, usually families who had lived on the island for generations. New arrivals were allowed to stay, but they could not own land. Instead, they had to rent housing. Houses were divided into small rooms, so one building could hold many families or workers. Some rooms were rented for months, others only for a few days. This system allowed the city to absorb many people without giving them land. Payment was usually made in coins or goods. If a tenant couldn't pay, they had to leave. There was very little protection for renters. Landowners controlled prices, especially when the city was growing fast or trade was strong. Sacred spaces followed different rules. Some areas were protected and couldn't be used for private housing. These places were linked to religion and public life. Especially at the start, a lot of time goes into opening new areas. Most of the time you'll see me placing a lot of houses. It might not look very exciting at first, but it really matters. This is how we start to understand how different parts of the city were built and how each area slowly took its shape. As we move forward through the city's history, I'll keep doing these overview shots, just to pause and see how the city looks at this stage. Because the city is always changing, some things will never look the same again. This view right now becomes part of its history, and that's actually really meaningful. Every district is not just a finished composition, it's a living part of the city. It changes, it evolves. Sometimes you might notice that I place a residential area and then almost right away rebuild the same block. That's because the city grows in a creative and spontaneous way. I don't have a fixed plan from the very beginning. I don't yet know where the aqueduct will be or where the future shipyard will stand. And that's a good thing. This is how the city gets a more realistic shape, and honestly, you and your comments under the videos often change my decisions. As the road along the Bourgogne River continued to develop, it became long enough to support a third carriage road. Of course, I understand that transport was very different from what we have today. Cities were not built for fast movement, but for people who walked. But I think we can afford such transport at this time. This is always fun to see people waiting on stops. Ancient cities were usually small and compact, so it was possible to reach important places like the market, temples or public squares by walking. Streets were narrow and not always in good condition. Carts were mainly used to carry goods, food or building materials, not people. More and more of settlement is now built with stone, so naturally the quarry needs to be expanded. We'll need enough materials for the larger projects we're planning. And the need to strengthen the fortress has also become very clear. The wooden walls no longer matches the status of a city. Stone walls make much more sense now. And the ruler, of course, already sees himself as worthy the larger and better protected buildings. This location is still strategically important. It stands right next to the bridge with a clear view of the opposite bank, which is exactly where an attack could come from. To make room for all this, the area was expanded a little, which means a small relocation for some of the residents. The shape of the fortress is quite traditional. You might say it looks a bit medieval, and that's fair, but it's not always easy to find the right assets for an ancient city, so we work with what we have. Still, it fits the overall style of the city quite well, which is honestly nice to see. Inside the fortress there will also be different buildings, including granaries in case of a siege. Because of that, structures like these were not just defensive. They were also very important infrastructure for that time. To make the stone fortress and the surrounding city feel more balanced, I decided to replace part of the nearby districts with some stone buildings right away. This actually makes a lot of sense, because the land around the fortress was never cheap, and now with a real fortification in place, this area has become even more desirable. Now, with the fortress completed, we can really talk about controlling not just the area but the whole region. Many great empires can no longer ignore the importance and strategic value of Cityburg, located on the Bourgogne River. While I was making these panoramic views, I realizing that one of the towers could be adjusted a bit to look more ancient. And what do we need for that? Of course, a Greek portico and some columns. In any unclear situation, you just add columns. It's basically the top trend in architecture right now. Any growing city needs more food production, so the fields began to expand, even reaching into the marshlands. People grew grain, vegetables, olives, and grapes. Grain was the most important. It was used to make bread, and bread was the base of everyday food. Harvest time was a big moment. Families, workers, sometimes even the whole community took part. Grain was cut by hand, collected, and then transported toward the city. The city also depended a lot on rivers and ports. Food arrived by boats much more easily than by land. From there, the city continued to grow along the Cardo, the main street that traditionally runs from north to south. Over time, I realized it works better to mix houses with small back gardens and houses without them. When I place only homes with gardens, the area doesn't feel as good. We're aiming for a much denser layout, even if there is still plenty of space on the island. At the same time, I had to change the route of the second carriage line. It was putting too much pressure on the bridge and slowing everything down while people were getting on and off. Now the second line will start at the forum and make a loop there, creating a convenient transfer point, basically the first transport hub of antiquity. Now the entire fortress district is being built up, and the area behind the temple of the goddess of the marshes is slowly becoming denser as well. As the city continues to evolve, a large part of the time will naturally be spent on building very ordinary districts, places with housing or production buildings. Like right now, very early huts and later on more advanced structures, but either way, this is a key part of the city building. For the first time, residential buildings are being placed on the mainland. This is how the so-called fearless quarter appears, because othermost citizens didn't trust the land across the bridge. At this stage, we're hardly focusing on infrastructure or detailed district planning. For people of this time, having a roof over their heads and a piece of bread is already enough to feel secure. Of course, there are not the only needs, and over time they will grow, not just for a few wealthy individuals, but more broadly. Still, roads do appear, and in a way they are already a form of infrastructure. And it's a big mistake to think that roads were always carefully planned in advance. Very often they are simply emerged on their own. After all these changes, we once again have a great moment to pause and look at the city in this period. A time when the stone fortress is complete, the amphitheater is in the middle of construction, and the main center is already built in stone. Sometimes it feels a bit sad knowing that we will never see the city like this again. Everything will keep changing, but it's great that at least this video will remain as part of its history. With the arrival of new residents, and most of them come by river, it became clear that we needed an additional passenger dock, because we can already see boats gathering and waiting in line. We need some kind of architectural focal point. The Cardo is already taking shape, and to complete the whole ensemble, it's time to start building a monument. The structure should be elegant and tall, rising above the surroundings. It should naturally draw the admiring looks of visiting merchants and envoys. The space in the middle of the forum is perfect for this, as the very center of the settlement. At the same time, construction of a lighthouse began. Growing trade and river traffic made it a real necessity of the rough and winding waters of the Bourgogne River. But for the city, the lighthouse is also an important symbol. A symbol of prosperity and of choosing its own path. Just like in the original Cityburg, I hid the time machine inside the temple so no one would suspect that the ruler actually came from the future. Of course, that's not true. I just like to leave little Easter eggs like this, so only the real fans, the ones who follow the city's story closely, will know about these details. The stronger and richer the city becomes, the wealthier its residents are. Step by step, truly impressive ancient houses begin to appear. This particular one was built by one of the main merchants who was responsible for collecting duties at the port. At this stage, the port could set custom fees quite freely depending on the situation. For example, if first arrived, merchants might have to pay 30% to the city. If it was timber, the fee could be 20% instead. Of course, with a system like this, schemes also appeared and a lot of money often passed by the city treasury. Now the Oracle district has also started to develop intensively, even though not long ago it was still a distant outskirts of the settlement. Little by little, the settlement truly grows to a significant size. Fields, infrastructure, housing, people begin to develop the entire nearby region as well. The first new settlement appears on the other side of the Bourgogne River. This place will become an important transfer point for bringing goods from the eastern lands. A bridge of such size across such a deep and wide river is still something unrealistic at this time, so a port on the opposite bank is a much better solution. This settlement is called Foodham, and I think many people will understand why. Here everything needs to be kept simple, just a regular village with all the basics. Out here most houses will be wooden, and of course there will be a small place for market as well. Next, to connect the city with the southern and western directions, a road had to be built downstream. By this time we had made enough progress to build bridges much more easily than before. This essentially gives Cityburg a second route to the island. In the future, the approaches to this crossing will definitely need to fortify it as well. The Cardo now extends all the way to the second bridge, and the bridge still needs a name. Maybe one of you can suggest it in the comments. I'll choose the most liked option and add the name to the map. At this crossroad, where the roads to the south and west meet, a settlement called Trivium appeared. It works as a transfer point with stables and inns for travelers. By the same principle, a settlement began to form on the very first road to the north, beyond the marshlands. This settlement is called Marsh Gate. It will welcome travelers and merchants coming from the north, and it will also make it possible to work the nearby land. The fields are already spreading, and reaching them from the city center is becoming too far. Coming back to Foodham, and it should of course live up to its name and gradually become the main producer of food for market and for export. The monument is now finished, and after aligning it with all the main directions to get the best perspective, we can finally start admiring the beauty we now see. I always really enjoy watching the city when many structures are still under construction. I think this is something city building games often lack. For a city to feel alive and not just like a picture, it needs buildings that take a long time to complete, and honestly I would even make construction depend not only on money but also on materials. That would make city building much more engaging and far more realistic. The lighthouse is also completed during this period. Of course, it's not one of the great wonders of ancient Alexandria, but it's still an impressive structure, and its light will be visible to travelers and ships moving down the river. At this point, a guard is stationed at the lighthouse, making sure the fire never goes out, and the citizens are proud of the importance of this structure. But the main structure of this episode is still under construction. It's time to focus on the amphitheater. Right now we can see the very final stage of its construction. Here we are not trying to match the greatness of ancient Rome just yet. Instead we're building not an arena for fights but an amphitheater for theatrical performances and the art of public speaking. I'm really happy with the result. What surprised me the most is that this project was built mostly by intuition and kept changing along the way, and still it turned out great. The city gained a true heart, a place that draws people in and shows its cultural and artistic side. What makes cities truly great is their history, the milestones that remain important for people, a story of rise and fall, of success and failure. This settlement is only beginning its journey through the centuries, and I hope that one day we will see the first railway here and even the first skyscrapers. And the future more than ever depends on you, on your activity and of course your support. This project takes a lot of time and effort. So if you'd like to help me make videos more often, consider becoming a channel member. You'll become a citizen of Cityburg and receive your own house in the city, or even a whole castle. You'll also be mentioned in every video and become part of the city's history. And of course, you can support the project in other ways as well by leaving a comment or sharing this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any changes in the city, and of course, stay with Cityburg. Thank you and see you guys.